I'm Tommy Whitehead, the CEO and founder of TomCo Solutions, a full-service building, renovation, and storm restoration contractor based in Tampa, Florida. Sitting with me today at the drafting table is Matt Boden, owner of Fresh Coat Painters of Tampa, and he's here to discuss navigating the trade industry as a franchise owner. Welcome, Matt. It's great to have you on.
Thanks, Tommy. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So Matt and I have had the privilege of working together in networking. So we've actually traded a couple products back and forth, or projects back and forth, and we've got to know each other kind of over the last 6 months or so.
Yeah.
And we were talking about paint in Florida. It's a lot more we're going to get into. You think it's simple, but the elements here are crazy. So I'm really interested to talk to you a little bit of tradey talk today. But before we get out, I would like to start with your foundation. If you could tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
So originally I'm from California.
Okay.
Grew up there till I graduated from college. My parents moved out to northern Alabama right when I was in college and decided to kind of follow them when I was done and kind of got into the restaurant industry from there.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's two culture shocks, right?
Oh,
That's
man,
West Coast to East Coast,
shoes.
and then the restaurant industry. So you worked in the industry for how long? The restaurant industry?
20 years.
20 years in the restaurant industry. And how did you make that decision? I mean, there's so much to unpack there, right? But how did you make the decision to go from the restaurant industry, of all things, that hospitality level of service where you're doing these creative things, and move over to painting, of all things? They're almost like the antithesis of each other.
They are, but there's a lot of similarities too. You know, you have that hospitable background that you try to bring to your clients every single day when you're in their home or you're taking care of their needs. So it's very translatable in a lot of senses. The reason why I got into the painting industry, though, is because at March of 2021, my dad passed away, and I decided that the restaurant industry had taken so much of my time away from my kids. So it really kind of sat with me after that happened in ways that I can kind of make my life better with them.
Okay, that's awesome. You may not know this, but I actually came from the hospitality industry before construction as well.
Yeah.
So I was a director of finance and accounting. So I was the numbers guy of that side. You were the facing side, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Of that. I frequently use my hospitality skills even today.
Absolutely.
And you'd find that true as well?
Every single day. I mean, it's ingrained in my DNA. It's everything that I kind of grew up doing in my professional background. So I bring that every day into this business, and it's just translated into mild or really high success.
And so I would think you'd have a similar experience that I do, is that we don't see a lot of people like that have gone from hospitality to trades. It's not that they're not friendly people in the trades, but it's very different, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The attention to detail, the hospitableness, just any dealing with clients, and you just don't see that on a daily basis with other companies.
And do you find, and I think this is an obvious question, but do you find that's really helped you, like been like a secret weapon for you?
Absolutely. And that's what I've instilled in all my employees too, and they've kind of bought into that, and they are just taking that and riding with it all the way through.
That is incredible. I always remember a hospitality story, and it went something like, when you're servicing a person at a resort, remember that's their vacation. That little extra touch makes their vacation and relax. If you go on vacation, do you want to be taken care of?
Absolutely.
And so I take that same mentality when I'm renovating a house here in Tampa. I think this person's been out of their home for months due to a flood, or they've been inconvenienced due to a bathroom or kitchen for months. I always try to put myself in their shoes, and that comes from the hospitality industry, though.
Right.
So it's pretty cool to see other professionals. Maybe we should go hit a restaurant afterwards and see if we can pick up some more employees.
Love it.
So what made you decide to move down to Tampa Bay? I mean, Tampa is amazing, don't get me wrong, but what's your favorite part about living and working here?
So my hospitality background brought me here. I was with a corporation that needed help in one of their flagship locations.
Okay.
So they moved me down here just as COVID was kind of coming out of it. Took over that location, really got to excel with it until, unfortunately, my dad passing. And then I decided to kind of take a turn and figure out what I really wanted to do. And painting is what kind of led me into growing into Tampa Bay. The Tampa Bay market is absolutely phenomenal. I love the weather. I love the people. There's always something to do. So Tampa is just, it's home now. And I love it.
Well, I'm really sorry to hear about your dad's loss. I lost my mom about the same time, so I guess we have a lot of shared stories we didn't
For sure.
we didn't know. Would you find that kind of invigorated your passion? Because you mentioned you were spending time away from your kids, that maybe what you were doing was fulfilling, but you look at your life. I think when my parent passed away, I kind of look at my life a little differently of what do I want to pass on to my kids now.
Yeah.
And that's when I started changing the way I approach construction. Would you find that you kind of had that same feeling that really is what invigorated you just to snap out of it, do something different?
100%. You know, I missed birthdays, holidays, Christmases, you know, you name it, I missed it. And when all that happened, I wanted to start changing the lives of my kids and being more present, because that wasn't happening in the hospitality industry. As much as I love the hospitality industry, it really takes your time and it takes away from your family and, you know, the values you're trying to have your kids grow up with.
That's great. I did a podcast once and talking about professionalism over 40. And, you know, we're not in our 20s anymore. You know, just changing your career goals in your 20s or your early 30s, that's not so hard. When you get a little older, when I get closer to 40, when you hit that mark, it's kind of, people don't change careers too often.
Sure.
And so that must have been a big shock. Okay, you're here in, I'm going to guess, late 30s or so, saying, oh, you know what? I've done this for 20 years, but now I'm just going to completely change what I've done. So that had been a little bit of a shock.
It was, and it was a little transition phase as well. You know, unfortunately, having owned and operated restaurants in my past, I understood a business sense and how to kind of grow a business. So that part wasn't hard, but understanding the full painting industry and the ins and outs and nuances and verbiage, that's where I really kind of had to study my craft and go in and really understand the product.
Gotcha. I always say if I can job cost a hamburger, I can job cost a construction job. Really, it's lettuce instead of screws,
right?
Or vice versa. So that's pretty cool. Do you have, or did you have, any kind of role model or mentor who helped you along the way? I mean, maybe it's multiple, one that was in hospitality and one that wasn't, or maybe it was one person that just was universal.
Yeah, I had a few as I was growing up, you know, a lot of coaches as I played sports. And then once I got into the restaurant industry, there was one in particular that really kind of made me kind of turn the corner. Because when you get in the restaurant industry, it's all about fun. It's all about, you know, let's just make some money and go about our day. But there was one guy who, and his name was Mike, he kind of changed my perspective on how to treat people. And once I learned how to really understand and treat people in a professional way, it kind of excelled the growth that I had in the restaurant industry.
So you focused on relationships and not sales.
Correct. That's because I knew that if my people took care of the business, they would take care of me.
And that is something that is so important for people trying to get new sales. Focus on your relationships first. Talk to people, get to know them, genuinely care, and the sales come later. But if you don't have that genuine nature, you're not going to close that sale.
Absolutely.
So tell me, Matt, tell me a little bit about what drives you. Like, what's the favorite part of your day, the things you do, the people you meet? Like, tell me, you know, hey, this is, you know, a successful day. It's been great because of this happened.
So the reason why I love the trade industry too is because your day's never the same, and you never know who you're going to meet or the type of personalities you're going to have. And again, that translates so much from the hospitality industry into this. So I love that. I love not knowing the house I'm walking into. I have a schedule. I kind of know where my day is going to go, but it's completely different every single day.
Wow. I didn't even think about that. It is so much like hospitality because you're just meeting people en masse in that industry. So now you've encountered probably every personality type.
Well, you never know.
You never know.
There's always that one out there.
That sounds like a challenge.
Right.
All right, Matt, I like to talk about tools for success with my guests. And in this segment, you know, I kind of ask a little bit about how you work in your industry. And so what tools for success from the restaurant industry do you bring over to the painting industry? You talked about a couple of them, but what's one key one that you brought over?
So what's really made us successful and what's really ingrained in kind of our culture in our business is a people first mentality. Every day I always call all my employees, see how they're doing, kind of know where they're mentally at, so we know how to tackle that day and kind of what our success will be for the day. Because if I have a estimator that's kind of off his game or something's going on in his personal life, I know I need to assist and kind of help them out a little bit more, kind of change their mindset so they have that mentality to close and just do right by the day.
That's incredible that you take that extra step to talk to your people, ask them what's going on, see what's happening. I've noticed as well with my employees, if there's something happening in their personal life, as much as they want to keep quiet and don't want to bring their problem to work, it does kind of loom over us. I found as a contractor, as a people manager, that's important, is to make sure that employees have a method to vent, because sometimes they have no other place to vent, and it makes them feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. What advice would you give somebody looking to open up a franchise in your new local area? I mean, you got to be a franchising expert now, because these guys school you, right?
They do.
They push you pretty hard to learn everything quickly.
They do. And, I went through a lot of, franchise development and learning what franchise would work best for me. So I really think anyone looking to do that, take your time, understand the business as much as you possibly can before you invest into that. And then really understand if this is something that you're going to be passionate about and you're willing to grow, because you don't open a franchise to just say, hey, all right, business, come to me. You really have to get after it, and you have to understand what it's going to take to make that business work.
So as much as it's a franchise, as much as it's a recognized name brand, that's still not just guaranteed business in the door.
100%. You still have to get after it.
You still work your leads. You still generate your leads. You still get in the community.
Absolutely.
Which is how we met. You were being told, I'm sure by your franchise, you got to be out in the community, and you joined a networking group that I was part of.
Yes.
And that was part of your community outreach, and I'm sure you're part of multiple organizations or go to multiple events like that.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, I want to meet as many people that's going to make my business better, but at the same time, I want to know how I can help this community in any way possible.
That's cool. So have you seen more recognition since you've been out there? Like, have you seen that people, Fresh Code, I know a guy from Fresh Code. Have you started to see that coming up now?
Absolutely. I get noticed all the time at grocery stores with some of the ads that I have. My kids, when they're out with me, because we post pictures of our family, and that's how we kind of can help connect with them. They're like, oh, you're the kid from the ad. And they're like, oh, they think they're little celebrities.
That's great. That sounds like something I'll have to get my son involved.
Right.
Exploiting our children for profit. No, I mean, bringing the children into the family business, right?
Sure.
Okay, there's phrasing. We have PR people for that. We talked about this before, but relationships, they're key in the construction industry. What networking advice would you give to a new franchise owner or a new business owner, especially one in the trades like you and I are?
Yeah, as any new business or new franchise opens up, you need to be genuine, because if you're going out there and you're putting on a facade and kind of a fake front, when you meet these people, it's not going to truly translate into true connecting. And as long as you're genuine with them and the people that you meet, you'll get those true connections as you kind of grow in your business.
That's awesome. Don't just sell something, right?
Right.
Don't just show up, hi, my name is Matt. Do you want to buy a paint job?
Right.
That's not the way to go about it. It's to get people thinking about you, so that when somebody says the word paint, it might not be them. It might be somebody else they know, right? So when somebody says the word paint, well, I don't know, but I met this guy, Matt, from Fresh Coat, and he was pretty professional, and he was a nice guy.
Absolutely. I never ask anybody about how their house looks or their paint needs that they have. I want to know about you. What drives you? What's your family like? Anytime I walk into a house to do an estimate, the last thing I talk about is paint. I want to know about them. I talk about their needs. I look at the pictures on the wall, kind of understand their family dynamic as well, and get to know the person.
That is an excellent tip to all business owners. It's just to get to know your client. If you don't know your client, you're never going to be able to close a deal with them. And you have to genuinely know them. You can't just be like, oh, I like baseball, even though you've never been to a baseball game.
Right.
You can't fake it, right? You can find common ground. Well, that's good advice. Matt, this segment, I love the name of this segment. It's called Stud Finders. Obviously, we found a couple here, but it's just telling us a little bit about leaders in our industries, okay? So being a leader comes with its challenges. How do you find, hire, and manage your employees? I know for a fact right now you're still looking for more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so how are you finding those in this labor market?
So when I go looking for employees, I like to have a conversation again about them. I don't want to know about their work background necessarily, because I want to know if they're going to be a good fit for our company and our culture. There's a certain person that I like to kind of blend in with the family that we're creating. And if that person's or personality isn't going to blend, it's just going to create more havoc than it is benefit. So when I have those conversations with them, we'll get to what you've done in the past, but I want to know if you're going to fit into the family as well.
That's a good thought, because we hear the term corporate culture a lot. And we think, it's just some Wall Street buzzword that people like to put out for marketing. But company culture is important, even to small companies, to family-run companies, to businesses like yours and mine that don't make $100 billion a year. Those cultures are still significant. How would you suggest a small business owner identify their culture?
I really think you need to know what you're trying to portray to not only your employees, but to the public, because that's how your culture is going to come out. Your employees will show your culture every single day. They're going to see more clients than you ever will, especially as the business owner. So you want to make sure that they have the same mindset and mentality that you're bringing to them every single day.
That's awesome. So you're looking for somebody that shares those values before you even told them what the values are almost.
Right.
You're kind of pre-interviewing during the interview.
Right.
So with employees, I'm sure you've had this problem. My jobs obviously run longer than yours do. You know, I could be in a house for 6 months to a year. If you have a 1-year paint job, something's wrong.
Right.
But I'm sure you have the same issue that I do sometimes, especially with longer projects, even if it's just a few weeks for you on a commercial project maybe, that the staff doesn't stay as motivated. Maybe it's just the project. Maybe they're tired of this project, or maybe it's a particular challenge or a particular client. So what do you do to kind of help motivate your staff on a daily, weekly, per job basis? You know, what do you do to like get them invigorated and excited?
Yeah, even if it's, you know, a 2-day project, there's moods that can change throughout the whole process that are going to switch the moods of the employees. So I like to always engage with the clients during the projects, no matter what, or be on site. And I'll grab a paintbrush. I'll get after it with them, and I'll you know, kind of motivate them in a way that I'm doing this with you guys. Let's do this together, and we'll push through it. We'll get through whatever kind of is throwing off that mood or that, you know, that whole project, and let's just power through it.
So you come with the nothing's below me mentality.
100%.
That's critical, because some people think that they're too good for something.
Right.
And now you can't be with a paintbrush every day. That's not your function. It's nothing wrong with you not being with a paintbrush every day. You have to run a company. You have certain skill sets to do that other people lack. Whereas I would say you're not probably the best painter that's employed under
not
your
at
company.
all.
There's probably people that have been doing that for 20 years when you're employed, right? But just showing your employees that you care, that you understand their grief or understand their hardship, that forms a bond, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And that's where our culture comes in, because I set that tone with the employees from day one, that I will always be there for them. That I always have the best interest of them first and foremost, because I know they're helping take care of the business. They're going to help grow the business. We're going to get where we want to be, but we've got to take care of it day to day, and they're the ones doing it.
That's wonderful. That's a team mentality. That's not a top-down management mentality. That is a team mentality that we're all in it together.
Sure. And I'm very much a servant leader.
That's incredible, and that's very rare in our industry. I think it's becoming more prevalent. We're finding that we can get better talent if we show that we care about them.
Absolutely.
What are some of the innovations in the industry right now that you are excited about? Maybe they're new tools or new systems, or Rosie the robot from the Jetsons. Maybe she's out there painting now. I don't know. Tell me something cool and new.
So robots aren't really going to take over my industry.
Yeah.
It's going to be a hard thing to kind of change the way we do things. But the innovations I'm seeing with different styles of paint and different, science and chemicals that are involved in that paint and the process, that's what's exciting to us, because we can figure out how to kind of streamline our processes based off those chemicals inside of the paint. It can dry faster, it can move quicker, it can spray in a different way. Learning about those and kind of what we're seeing coming in the future, it's very exciting, because our processes will not only be more efficient, but they'll be quicker too.
Okay, so then you're talking about, most people don't realize, but a paint sprayer can be adjusted in a way that the paint coverage is fine, but you're wasting too much paint. It's oversaturating. You can also go the other way, where you refine it so little that you're not getting enough coverage, so then you have to do it 3 times and you're not getting efficiency. So there's a science behind these nozzles, these spray patterns, isn't there?
100%. And the nozzles are changing every week, it seems like. There's new ones coming out. There's different coverages you're able to do. The qualities of the paint you're able to get better coverage on. So when you look at a typical gallon of paint, it's a 250 to 400 square foot. We are seeing some that are coming out in the next 6 months. It's up to 500-600 square feet in 1 gallon, just because the coverage and spread rate is just increasing.
And it's the same quality job.
100%.
It's just stretching the chemicals, the paint, just a little bit further, and that equates to cost. I mean, one room, that doesn't really affect the cost, but when you're talking about an entire house,
yeah,
That's gallons less paint. That's several gallons less of paint.
And it's saving the clients more money, which is most important to them.
And it's reducing environmental impact as well.
100%.
That's awesome. Speaking of which, we were talking about this before the show a little bit, and I kind of brought you up to speed a little bit, and I know you're probably going to do some homework, and we'll chat about this later over lunch someday. Photovoltaic paint.
Yes, I'm very intrigued when you brought this up, and understanding how, UV's rays can help rejuvenate and kind of take over with a paint product is super interesting to me.
Are you sure it's not superstition? I think it might be like some magical process. There's a group of wizards somewhere that are doing this, or science. I mean, I don't know. Science is cool too.
You hope science.
So yeah, there's products out there. They're researching and studying, and they're thinking, they can coat a skyscraper in this translucent photovoltaic paint and actually discern solar power where there isn't enough room for panels. And it can actually reduce the heating or cooling costs on a building.
It's just absolutely mind blowing to me that they're able to do this.
Yeah, isn't it crazy? So I mean, maybe that's your next leap and bound there as you're installing photovoltaic.
We'll start doing it in Florida.
Well, start doing it here. Yeah, that'd be great. You're frequently on the construction site. We have a segment called the construction site here, and this is where I'm going to ask you about a particular challenge. So can you tell me a story of a particular challenge you faced with a client before, and how did you overcome that?
So we had a client that was very adamant about a certain color when we originally signed them on. And day after day, they wanted to change colors. And it was just an ongoing thing till finally we had to have a sit-down talk before we continued on and just said, you're costing yourself more and more money with this. We need you to make a final decision before we continue to paint, because we're having to do this over and over again. And it was a large house, and it was costing them thousands of dollars as they kept changing the colors. So the client was understanding, but at the same time, you have to have that talk with them and set that expectation.
Got it. And you spoke about something else about changes and extra cost there. I know this. I'm going to ask you this. How valuable, how important is it to have change orders signed by the client?
100%, because if they don't sign off on that and you go to present them with the final invoice, they'll argue with you. They'll not understand why the prices have changed. But if they have an understanding that they chose to do this, then there's no argument whatsoever. And
in these change orders, they're detailed, right? They want to change from ruby red to rose red. No cost difference, right? Because a different color is not going to change the cost of the paint if it's consistent. I'm sure 4 different colors in the same room, that changes cost. But if it's the same wall color throughout the house, changing that color doesn't make a difference to you if they select it before the process.
Correct.
But you document so that when they come back and say, I don't like ruby red, you can say, well, you signed off on ruby red.
100%. And that's why, you got to have a paper trail. You have to have an understanding of where your project starts and where it's going throughout the whole thing. Because if the client comes back to you at any point and says, that's not what I did, or that's not what I selected, you want to make sure you have paper signed by them. 100% understanding.
That's wonderful. I've seen this in the flooring industry before too, where the tile, it's a plank tile. So it might be 3 or 4 inches wide by 12 inches long to 24 inches long. Well, people think, oh, I just want tile installed and I pick the tile and that's it. Well, there's something called a lay pattern, right? Does it go from left to right, or does it go from front to back if you're looking from the perspective of the front door of the house? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it makes all the difference. And I'm sure you've seen this before, where the flooring looks kind of off. The flooring looks fine, but then it looks off. It's because it's laid the wrong way.
Oh, yeah.
And there are actually $0 change orders in the construction industry and flooring that have you, with a diagram, pick your lay pattern.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, and so going back to what you said, having everything in writing, it goes all the way down to here's the writing on, you want your tile left to right, here's a picture. Okay, left to right based on the position of what? The front door. Well, how thick do you want your grout line? So it's important, and all I'm emphasizing here is it's important to get all the nitty-gritty details down in writing before, as a subcontractor or a contractor, you install something. That way there's no chance that the homeowner can come back and try to hit you for a discount of, oh, why didn't you do it front to back?
Right.
Why didn't you paint it ruby?
Right. Success is in the details.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you find with other individuals you work that some of the estimates, like you've got competitors, I'm sure, right? We all have competitors. Do you find that your estimates are way more detailed, and then that helps you in the process, because I found that the more detailed the estimate, the more line item, it's more meticulous, it takes more work. But I found for myself that helps the client, it helps close sales. What about yourself?
We get compliments all the time from clients about how detailed our actual estimates are. And they're not just estimates, though. They're firm quotes. Like, once we're done measuring, that's going to be your price unless the client decides to change something after that. So they appreciate, seeing the videos and understanding we have photos in there and just detailed every single room or line item that we're going to be doing. We're competing against somebody in the mom and pop industry that has a yellow notepad that's their writing of their bid. But, we have emailed quotes to them. We do it on the spot before we leave the house. So it's a big difference.
Yeah, it sounds like you're using the next wave of technology to give these estimates, because you're newer to the paint industry, but by volume you're expert already. But even 10 years ago, I'm not going to lie, on my sketch pad I would be like, okay, it's a 10 by 10 room, and I'll make my handwritten notes. I'd always go back and type it up, but still it was a very manual process.
Right.
And so now it sounds like technology is coming into play.
Absolutely. Our program does all the math for you. It even measures out to the exact T of what paint you'll need to order based off the spread rates that you put in, and it's all done within 10 minutes.
Wow, that's massive.
Yeah.
That's massive. And that's technology that smaller companies don't necessarily have, but you as a franchise owner, you have access to this.
Correct. And that's one of the huge benefits of buying a franchise.
That's wonderful. Can you tell me a little bit more? I'm just out of curiosity, the measure process with that. Do you still have to put a tape measure to the wall? Do you use a laser measure, or does your iPad just no?
So we use a laser measure.
Okay.
We don't use any tape measures.
Okay.
We also use the wheel for doing exterior of
Gotcha.
the home. But they have a new product out now. I'm sure you've seen it in the construction industry where you can set it in the middle of the room and it does all your measurements for you.
It's called a Matterport.
There you go. So we've tested that. We've thought about bringing it into our business because it'll just streamline, and make it very easy. But the current process we have is pretty simple as it is.
That's awesome. We've actually deployed a Matterport in my construction company, and some contractors charge for them. We don't charge when we're coming out to do an estimate. We found twofold. One is it shows the client what we're looking at, and we can do virtual walkthroughs later without having to go back to the job site. Two, we have found that we can use it to put a second set of eyeballs on an estimate without having to interfere with anybody. The measurement process, that's what's one of the best is. It gets close enough measurements. We always take fine measurements really close with a tape measure or laser measure, but for is 6 inches difference going to make a difference to you in paint?
Not at all.
No.
Yeah.
So for most things for myself, we're bidding in it, and we're finding that is a highly effective tool that it can just import into our technology and do all the takeoffs and measurements for us. It's incredible.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I've seen the technology. I want to get my hands on it and try it out.
Yeah, well, if you'd like to, you can feel free to come to us at the job site and watch us Matterport one.
I'd love it.
They're pretty neat. So this is the fun part of the show. It's almost to the end of the show. We like to call this Ratchet It Up because we like to ratchet up with a little bit of humor. And so I would like you to think about this, dig deep here. What's one of the craziest mistakes you've ever heard of in the painting or construction industry?
So it was actually happened to us on our very first project.
It's always the first project.
Yeah. And we opened up and we're like, let's just follow everything it says no matter what. And we put on a primer on every exterior home before we do the actual paint. So I followed our system exactly what it was. And I ordered 30 gallons of primer.
Okay.
We only needed
30
5
gallons of primer.
Yes. So I had about 25 extra gallons of primer to use basically for 6 months.
Okay. So yeah, that's for those of you that don't know, 30 gallons would be a massive home of primer, because primer isn't like paint color where you need the full coverage. Primer is just to get a good solid coat on it so that the paint coverage can shine through better. But 30 gallons, wow. All right. Well, at least it's something you could have used.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not like you ordered 30 gallons of Ruby Red.
And I told the client, I'm taking this off your bill. Obviously, we didn't use all this, but it was one of those where you just kind of slap your forehead.
And now you know.
Right.
If you ever see 30 gallons of primer in order, it better be a big facility.
Absolutely.
So, Matt, so then we're having fun here. Tell me about a funny painting story or a great clean construction or painting joke.
So I thought about some stories. There was one that probably wasn't as clean, so I decided to go with a joke instead.
It's good for our G-rated audience.
So what is a painter's favorite appetizer?
What's that?
Bruschetta.
You heard it here first. Nerd dad jokes. I love those on this show. It's my favorite.
Life, yes.
It's my favorite. Well, Matt, thanks for a job well done. Thank you so much for joining us for Tommy's Toolbox, the podcast. If you have any questions about my company, TomCo Solutions, the construction industry, or real estate investing, please be in touch or visit TomCoSolutions.com. My contact information is in the episode description, and I'll put Matt theirs as well. We would love to hear from you. Till next time, thank you again. I look forward to seeing you at the construction site for the next episode of Tommy's Toolbox, the podcast. Have a great day, everyone.